And so since then, what's happened is that a lot of other athletes, guys who were, quite frankly, better equipped to fight in a boxing match than Nate Robinson was, have all started to come out and said, next fight, why don't you come and give us a shot? In all honesty, I think that my favorite one of them so far has been Evander Kane. And Evander Kane is definitely the guy who seems to have gotten the biggest response. In fact, Logan Paul came out on his podcast, which is, by the way, not a better podcast than 100 Degrees. But he came out on his podcast and he kind of started to jump in like he was going to take care of that particular business for him. I mean, of course, because Jake Paul isn't going to stand a chance in the ring against Evander Kane. So Logan Paul gets on his podcast and he starts saying, it's like, a shark? A San Jose shark? What is that? Is that some kind of like a marine animal that lives in San Jose? And then he went on to say some things that, in all honesty, I thought were very revelatory. So the very next thing out of his mouth is he says, it's like, Evander Kane, is he an active athlete? Oh, well then, when's he going to have time to train boxing? And what that told us is that really, Jake Paul and Logan Paul, they're already drumming them up. They're already coming up with their excuses to only fight retirees and mumble rappers. Now, as it so happens with Evander Kane, Logan Paul, he really should have looked both ways before he got into that. Because as it turns out, Evander Kane's father was a boxer. So Evander Kane, he grew up around boxing rings. He grew up around boxing gyms. He's done his share of training. And it does show up in the way that he handles himself on the ice. We're talking about a guy... And it does show up in the way that he handles himself on the ice. We're talking about a guy who's knocked out Matt Cook. If you can knock out Matt Cook, you are no powder puff. You can take care of yourself. And so the next thing that he gets into is Logan Paul starts saying, it's like, Evander Kane versus Jake Paul. Is that a headline fight? Is that a fight that's going to make a lot of money? Is that a fight that people are going to buy? That is so astonishingly delusional that I can scarcely come up with the words for it. Does Logan Paul really think that anybody bought the Tyson versus Jones pay-per-view because they wanted to see Logan Paul, or they wanted to see, Jake Paul fight Nate Robinson? Because they wanted to see Jake Paul take on a retired NBA player who's not a boxer? Is that what this fucking idiot thinks that people buy boxing pay-per-views for? Because you know what? If that's really what he believes, I'll tell you, I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona that I could sell you dirt cheap. Seriously, this guy thinks, that after they've boxed like a couple of, a retired NBA player and a mumble rapper, he thinks that they're main event boxers? Get abducted, dude. Walk out your front door. Put on some shiny clothing. Walk out your front door. Find the nearest alien spaceship. Flag them down. Tell them, hey, I'm right here. I'm right here. You can come. You can experiment on me. And then turn around. Bend over. Drop your pants. Let them probe you right there. Get abducted, you idiot. And that isn't even the only delusion that either one of these two guys have. I did see the post-match interview where they've got Jake Paul. He's standing beside the ring, and he's literally they were giving away these. They gave every guy that fought, regardless of whether or not they won, they gave everybody that fought a medal. And he's standing there wearing this thing, and he's like, this thing means so much to me because my whole life has been a fight. It's like, motherfucker, you're YouTube famous. You got YouTube famous as a teenager. You got YouTube famous as a teenager, and you think that you know what it means to work? You think you know what it means to fight? Unbelievable. Jake Paul, he doesn't know what it means to fight. He doesn't know what it means to fight, and his brother doesn't either, and in all honesty, I don't think that either of them really want to. Because I think that if either one of them wanted to know what it really means to fight, I think they would actually be going out and looking for real opponents. They would actually be going out and trying to fight pro boxers. They wouldn't be out trying to fight mumble rappers and NBA retirees. The fuck out of here with that. No, they want to walk around thinking that they're a couple of killers. They want people to look at them as if they're tough without ever having to actually do anything to actually earn that. And I think that maybe that, as much as anything else, is a big part of what has so many people so offended with the way that these two guys are conducting themselves. And so on that note, you know what? I do hope that Logan Paul does take the Evander Kane fight. I hope that he does take it. I hope that they do go ahead and do that August 31st, 2021, just as Evander Kane has said that he wants to. Yeah, I hope that they do go take that fight, and I hope that he does get his at that fight. But in all honesty, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think that he's going to take that fight. I think that he's going to go out, he's going to make his excuses, and then he's going to go out, he's going to handpick some opponent who can't beat him. Because I think for those two guys, it's not really about being legit. It's not about actually being the thing. It's just for them, it's about being seen as the thing. It's about people thinking that they are that thing. And I think that the minute that they face any kind of real resistance, that they face any kind of real opposition, I think they go away, and I think that the boxing world never hears from them again. Which, in all honesty, I think would probably be the best thing. You know, if we never got to see Jake Paul and Logan Paul, we ever got to see either one of those guys get knocked out, the next best thing would be that they just go away and they're never heard from again.